大家好，欢迎。我希望你们都有很的身体。哎啊、今天我的公寓，我的公寓啊、比较酸暖因为我和我的未婚妻，嗯，特别忙，特别忙。今天，今天我我应该我应该工作，但是第一我想要拍视频。Hi guys, sorry I had to get all that out. Basically, my apartment is a mess right now. My fiance and I have been very busy with work, with schoolwork. Um, yeah, just a lot of things. So I'm gonna be doing some tidying today, but also I should be working, but I should be doing some schoolwork. But I really wanted to make a video today because I got thoughts. Specifically, I have thoughts about the fact that Republicans are they're either on damage control. I forget my camera is up higher now. They're either doing damage control or they're fueling the fucking fire. So um, Donald Trump, I mean, and the Republicans in general aren't hiding the fact that they currently are not on board with how elections are run in this country, and they are trying to because this administration is a complete dumpster fire. It's fascist. It's a fascist administration, but it's also a fucking dumpster fire. Like our saving grace is the fact that they are incompetent. Um, they are trying to. They're trying to. Um, they're basically trying to make elections swing in their favor. Now we saw last year 2025, Republicans try to follow Trump's I guess you could call it a mandate of gerrymandering. Fly, fly is in my face. It's a gnat. Anyways, to do gerrymandering in states to give Republicans more seats, and it worked in some states. It also kind of backfired because um, I believe Texas, which was trying to get five additional seats, I believe that is held up in court at the moment. It has not gone through. If you remember, Texas Democrats left the state so that they could not hold the vote on that, and that's when Greg Abbott was like, "Oh, we're gonna arrest you guys if you don't come back to Texas." Yada yada yada, doing some bullshit. Uh, you know, Governor Hot Wheels over there, his lame ass self. Oh wait, I shouldn't say that. He's for scratch that. I'm sorry, I can't use that here. Um, Basically, he's a fuck boy, and nobody likes him. Um, anyways, so so there was that, and then California being one of the states, I was like, okay, well, if you're gonna do redistricting there, then we're gonna do redistricting here. The difference being that California put it to a vote to Californians. Californians overwhelmingly voted for it, and so they got it approved. They're going to be doing redistricting. They're going to gain, I think, about five seats, and obviously the Republicans, were really pissed off about this. Oh, we need to stop them from doing what we decided that we were going to do to gain more leverage in Congress. And so the Republicans tried to hold it up in court recently. The court was like, no, they can do this. Um, Obviously, when you go through better methods, you kind of get a better outcome, right? Um, Indiana, they tried it in Indiana. Republicans honestly were like, no, we're not going to do this. So it failed in Indiana. It did work in Ohio. Unfortunately, Ohio is going to have two extra Republican seats. Um, and then there was um, court hearings going on in Louisiana about the fact that they need to redistrict because um, the current voting block was you know racist towards white voters in Louisiana, um, and they're claiming that the claim was that that there are a couple of minority voting blocks, and this is disadvantaging white voters in those voting districts or whatever you want to call it, which is just ludicrous because I mean the Civil Rights Act, basically said, hey, you know, you this is how we're going to do it to stop, the total gerrymandering of a state. That you have to give people who you have to give um, people who are what's the word I want to use, who have less voting power. You want to be able to give them voting power, and that's why they have minority voting block districts like that because I mean at the end of the day they without it they would have no voice, and so Louisiana was trying to argue that and get rid of that, and then do some real more fucked up gerrymandering. That hasn't really worked so far, so that's good. And yeah, so um, and I think there was another blue state that managed to pick up seats as well. And there were some other states that picked up. There were some other red states that picked up seats. But the fact of the matter is, Republicans have not shied away from telling us that they are trying to rig elections in their favor. They keep saying, oh, excuse me, Democrat this, Democrat that on elections. Democrats are stealing elections because they're flying people in from other countries to vote, even though they can't legally vote if they're not a citizen. It's like, and so one, when they say, oh, citizens or migrants aren't voting, it's like these migrants who are voting are citizens and they are allowed to vote. They are not allowed to hold certain office positions like the presidency, right? So then they use that. They're like, oh, the 2020 election was stolen because there's no way more people came out to vote for Joe Biden than for Trump. They had Joe Biden got too many votes. Where did all these extra voters come from? Because every 4 years there's not a larger voting block. It's stupid. And they're trying to they're literally the Republicans are the fucking royalty of projection. They project, they project, they project, and they are the ones doing it. And it's infuriating that the Democrats don't come out and call them on their bullshit. Like, hey, what are you doing over there? Hey, you guys are talking about fraud, but hey, Donald Trump just released money launderers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I mean, like hammer on that point. Like if Democrats and blue states are doing so much fraud, why is Donald Trump like cozying up to fraudsters? I don't get it. If he's so concerned about drug trafficking and drug traffickers, why did he just release a drug trafficker? Like, you know what I mean? A president that did drug trafficking only to like lie about the other guy that he didn't like because Venezuela wasn't letting American companies take over the oil. It's just it's nonsense. It's like it breaks my brain sometimes how just like um unwilling the how unwilling Democrats are. They're so unwilling to say these things and say it with their full ass chest, man. It's so the Republicans are now they're trying so hard to push the Save Act, which if you don't know, this is this act is to push um voter ID voter ID voting, right? And it's um sorry, just saw something. So the thing with this is that Republicans are making it sound as if it is just a as if it's just some simple thing as going in with your driver's license to to a voting poll to vote, right, to cast your ballot. Like it's as simple as that. That's how they are um that's how they are God, what's the word I'm trying to use, man? Two languages, okay? um they're trying to sell it. Or we use that. They're trying to sell it as something as simple as that. You know, you want to vote, just show your driver's license or your state ID, and you can go and vote. Maybe your student identification, go and vote. And because they are selling it as this, a poll just came out about what Americans think about this. And so overall, like 80% of people are for um voter ID ID voting, right? And it's like 70 some percent of Democratic voters and like 80 almost 90% of Republican voters want this. It's not as simple as Republicans are trying to make it sound. And the Democrats are doing a very bad job of explaining that to people. You have to do a better job to explain that to people, especially when you have Donald Trump coming out and literally saying he wants to nationalize elections. I have okay. I cannot explain it thoroughly through the things that I have read about it. So we're gonna read something that lays it out very well as to the problem of of the Save Act, right? Before we get into that, I just want people to kind of refresh themselves with voting history and how it has worked in the past, because Republicans, when they were the Democrats and before the party switched, thanks FDR. um so the Republicans for a very long time have been against certain people voting, right? So um after the Civil War, Reconstruction era, you have you start to get Black Americans being able to vote, and so obviously they are going to vote for the people who represent them, i.e., Black people to go into Congress and advocate for them. Now the South did not like this. Okay, the Republicans then, which were the Democrats, forget it, conservatives. The South did not like this. They didn't want Black Americans to have such voting power. So what do they do? Well, they impose rules around voting. Okay, you still have to be a man at this point. At this point, women still cannot vote, whether they are white or Black. Um, and so they would implement things like poll taxes, right? You have to pay a poll tax to go in to cast your ballot, or you have to be literate to go cast your ballot. You have to be able to write your name to go cast your ballot. Your grandfather had to have been able to vote to cast your ballot. That one came a little later, but you get it. Once one thing starts to fail, right? Once you're able to pay that poll tax, you gotta do what? You gotta come up with something new, right? Okay, black folks are now able to pay this. So guys, what do we do here? Oh, I know. We gotta make sure that they can read and write their own name, given the fact, given that their education is not very good here, right? Which is purposely done. So there's no way they're going to be able to do that, right? Well, then people start being able to read and write their own name. So what do you do then? Oh, guys, we need something else. We need something else. Oh, I got it. Your grandfather had to have been able to vote for you to be able to vote, right? Which is why like we ended up getting the Civil Rights Act, right? Because like Jim Crow comes in, it's even worse. Like they moved the ball. There was a slew of things that stopped women from being able to vote, and excuse me. And so it doesn't stop, right? You implement one thing, and then once people are able to do that thing, you have to move the goalposts so that it's harder for people to be able to do said thing, and that is a real danger. It is it is just an act of voter suppression, and it needs to be talked about. And the Democrats have to do a better job at explaining this to people, because it Republicans are dumbing it down to such a degree. It sounds so good to so many people, and it would be a absolute disaster for our democracy in this country. So, I am gonna start off by reading this article in Brennan Center for Justice. It's an analysis. I'm sorry. Um, so yeah, the new Save Act bill would still block millions of Americans from voting. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start reading this. The show your papers requirement is an attack on freedom to vote. And you're going as we read this, you're going to see that there's a lot of things that actually go into being able to get an ID. And this is the thing that Republicans will not say publicly. They are going to just present it as they're going to use the easiest argument for it, and that is, oh, we just want to know who you are. Just show this. You just show your driver's license. It's not that simple. So let's get started. Last week, Republican lawmakers in both the House and Senate launched a renewed push to pass the SAVE Act, introducing two new bills that advance its show your papers requirement for voter registration. The first effort to pass the SAVE Act last year failed in the face of nationwide public opposition. These new bills are yet another effort to undermine undermine Americans' freedom to vote and make this unpopular policy the law of the land. In every form, the SAVE Act would require American citizens to show documents like a passport or birth certificate to register to vote. Sounds simple? Well, let's read on. Our research shows that more than 21 million Americans lack ready access to those documents. If you have never been in a position where, or you have been, you might not remember. Say your parents are getting ready to sign you up for something, and they need your birth certificate. Well, you've moved once or twice since you were born, and you're now, like 13 years old. It gets real hard to keep track of a birth certificate after 13 years, let me tell you, okay? I struggle to keep up with my birth certificate. I have it. Thankfully, my mom was able to find it, but I do remember many a time where she struggled to find the birth certificate. I think she even had to get a copy, and that is a long, arduous process to get a copy of a birth certificate. So I do remember her getting a copy of my birth certificate and then eventually finding the original one. So this is why so many people don't have ready access to such a document or passport, because there are a lot of people. Well, let's read on. Roughly half of Americans don't even have a passport. There you go. 340 million people in this country, well over 100 million people, do not have a passport. I mean, people don't go outside of the country like ever. I have a passport and I have a passport like ID card that gets me in and out of Canada, when I need that. Or Mexico. It would even work with Mexico. I have that. You know what I don't have though is a real ID. I don't have a real ID. Real ID is stupid as hell, first and foremost, but I have a passport. So it's like there's no reason for me to get that real ID at the moment. Now, going down the line, it might become a real problem for me. Um, that's a whole nother problem. Anyways, let's continue. Millions lack access to a paper copy of their birth certificate. The SAVE Act would disenfranchise Americans of all ages and races, but younger voters and voters of color would suffer disproportionately. Likewise, millions of women whose married names aren't on the birth certificates or passports would face extra steps to make their voices heard. You getting it? Young voters. So this is like voters who are off to college. They live in another state than their family now, and they want to register to vote, but then they need their birth certificate because they don't have a passport, right? There's not really a need for them to get a passport right now, so they're on that they rely on that birth certificate. It's at mom's house, mom and dad's house, whoever's house. It's there, and it is lost in a box of papers somewhere up in the attic. You might not be getting it, and then it's like, oh, we couldn't find it. Now we have to request an additional copy from the hospital that may or may not have closed. You get it? It's and then obviously voters of color. I wanted to go to the women whose married names are on their birth certificates or passports will face extra steps. There's a lot of things here, right? One, you don't have your maiden name, right? You took your spouse's last name. That creates a hurdle because then you have to prove who you are. You have to prove that you are this person on the birth certificate. You have to prove you're the person that you say you are on your passport. What happens if you get a divorce and you remarry? Now you've got a another last name to add to the list. There's all these things that would go along with the SAVE Act that people like. I don't think a lot of people don't know it, and if they do know it, they don't really understand the scope of how bad this would be for women, for young voters, for minorities. It might even be hard for old folks as well, and which is another thing. They want to get rid of mail-in voting. That really hurts old folks. Just like the SAVE Act of 2025, the new SAVE Act proposals would inject chaos into election administrations. And I think that's one of the big things about this is that they want to haphazardly implement it to really bring confusion to the midterm elections. They are acting in a way as to completely disrupt the process so that they can make claims of Republicans winning big. Republicans won here, Republicans won there. And they basically everything that they've done since Trump took office has kind of been they've been acting as if there's not going to be another election necessarily. You know what I mean? So this is them trying to put in place those things like to really undermine elections. And then you undermine it so much, you just kind of get rid of it. They would place a massive unfunded burden on on state and local election officials, and they would expose those officials to significant legal risks. The bills would leave it up to local officials to decide whether a voter who lacks one of the specified documents has done enough to prove citizenship. Officials who make an honest mistake could face civil and criminal penalties. An election official could even be punished for registering an eligible American citizen just for failing to collect all the right paperwork at the right time. This is like going into a DMV and getting the runaround because you didn't fill out a form correctly. You went over the line on the signature kind of thing. It's like that, but with a heavier implication. One, there can be civil and criminal penalties for officials doing this stuff, and two, not just two, but two, the person who is registering to vote can be denied the right to vote, and three, they might think that they were eligible to vote, and then it comes out that they are actually not, and now they find themselves being prosecuted for voting illegally, which is also another thing that I will bring up, and it's like this domestic terrorist designation that they have going on that can also affect things. Where am I? The three versions of the SAVE Act would go into effect either immediately or after enactment or within the next year or two, depending on the specific provision. Such a rushed implementation of massive policy changes would wreak havoc on election administration, unleashing confusion that will itself undoubtedly prevent some American citizens from voting. Like I said, they're trying to haphazardly do it so that they can completely undermine the election, write it off, and say, hey, our side actually won big in all of these states. We now have a straight up Republican majority, and we're going to really raise hell now. They have like a slim majority now. Though all versions of the SAVE Act would block millions of American citizens from voting, the bills in the House and Senate each contain unique additional obstacles. The anti-voters provisions in the House's new version, formerly titled the Make Elections Great Again Act, God, they're so... Sometimes I want to slap the shit out of somebody the people who come up with this stuff, are so numerous that they require a bullet-pointed list. The bill not only requires proof of citizenship, but also proof of residence in order to register. This could block even more Americans from voting. Roughly 9% of the population has moved within a state in the past year, but many will not update their driver's license until they expire. Now, here's the real kicker. Like, for me, right, when I moved to Ohio from Michigan, I definitely did not change my driver's license to be an Ohio driver's license. I actually went above and beyond and registered my license again in Michigan because I don't want an Ohio license. But with that, I can't use my Ohio address, right? I got it shipped here, but I can't use that address on my Michigan license. So technically, if this was to be implemented, I wouldn't be able to vote. I could technically vote in Michigan, but that would be really difficult because I'd have to drive 3 or 4 hours to be able to vote. I could vote by mail, but these motherfuckers are talking about taking away mail voting. So it's like, what else do you call this other than voter suppression? It's voter suppression. Now, I guess you could use mail like bills, right? You could do that. Maybe. Maybe it would depend on what they view as proof of you living there. Because I've been here for over a year now. I'm going on my second year of being in Columbus, Ohio. The bill would require photo ID to vote, providing a narrow list of acceptable IDs, more restrictive than the voter ID laws in every state but Ohio. For example, the bill prohibits the use of student IDs, even those issued by state universities, and accepts tribal IDs with an expiration date, even though many tribal IDs do not contain them. Do you see it? You see it. They are they pose it as being something that's so simple, but then there are all these caveats that people don't hear about and they don't know. So if it was to be implemented, so millions of Americans would find themselves unable to vote, and it wouldn't stop there because those who are able to find the way to vote would also pose a problem. So then they would have to go further and it's like, oh, well, now you can't vote with, unless you have this or this. You see what I mean? It doesn't stop here. The legislation would mandate voter roll purges every 30 days, placing enormous burdens on election officials and ending the 90-day quiet period that protects voters from being mistakenly thrown off the rolls right before election day. This is another big point. If you start purging voter rolls every 30 days, people have to re-register for the voting rolls. What happens when people wait until right before the election to register as a voter? Things are going to be gummed up so bad that people, not everyone who wants to register to vote is going to be able to do that. And like I said, this is all meant to basically break the system. You break the system, and then you say, "Hey, we told you that elections were faulty. They are not working, and this is why we have to change it. We have to change it some more, and you have to trust us on this. We've got it. We want the power, but we're not actually going to tell you that we want the power to, just steal elections. They're literally trying to steal elections by doing all this stuff. The bill would prohibit universal mail voting, requiring all male voters to submit an application in order to receive a mail ballot. This would end the longstanding principal method of voting in 8 states and Washington, D.C. Because a lot of these states, it's either hard to get to a polling station, or there's a lot of elderly people like Florida who rely mostly on mail ballots to vote. If you stop this, you really make it harder for vast swaths of people to be able to vote. I voted by mail in the last election. If this was to pass, probably wouldn't be able to do it. Right? It very much suppresses the vote of so many individuals in this country. Like it said earlier, was it 9% of people move to a new state every year, right? It's hard to travel back on election day to vote in person. You have long lines already to vote in person, which is why mail-in voting is so important for people who are disabled or people who can't stand for long periods of time. That's why that's so important. It's very important for people who are living 3 states over to be able to vote in their state because they are not a registered they're not a registered citizen of the state that they just moved to. So they have to vote in the state that they moved from. It's very important to be able to do that. This is another attempt to stop as many people from voting as possible, especially when every 4 years uh you have a larger voting block in the country, because the next generation now is ready to vote. And lo and behold, there are more and more progressive people going out to vote. The reason Kamala Harris didn't win is because Kamala Harris ran a dog shit campaign, running to the right to try to get some Republican voters. She got 3%, 3%. So that worked out so great. Um, yeah, it's just this cannot be pushed aside. I know there's a lot happening, and I mean, at this point, I feel like what midterms? We can't wait till midterms. This is why we can't wait till midterms. It cannot be stressed enough. The House bill appears to create an exception from the show your papers requirement for states that require full social security numbers to register, but only 3 states are allowed to require such data because privacy protections and federal law. You know what's also a crazy thing? Remember Doge? Yeah, did you know Doge was taking your data, like your social security number, and doing who knows what with it? They were just giving that information away. I really want that to sit with you. So we have that. We also have um we also have the government trying to get data, personal data, on people from these social media sites. They're trying to get the data from the people on these social media sites that are antagonistic to the Trump administration. So there's also that. They've also got the they've also got this database going of people that they deem to be domestic terrorists. And as you may know this, you may not know this, but calling someone a terrorist is a designation that the United States uses to do untold atrocities to a group of people or a person. If you call someone a terrorist, you are basically allowed to do whatever you want with little to no repercussion, which is why the Bush administration, um, they had the extreme methods of torture, right? That they were allowed to do, because they could call someone a terrorist and then they could do waterboarding type shit. That's just how it goes. You call someone a terrorist, you're allowed to do whatever. That's what they use to get around invading Venezuela and kidnapping their leader. That's how you get that. The Senate's new version of Save America Act, not only requires voters to show documents like passports or birth certificates to register, it requires them to do so again when they cast a ballot. The bill would exempt states from this second show your papers requirement only if the states have been regularly handing over their voter rolls to the Department of Homeland Security since June of 2025 for the comparison of the agency's citizenship tool, confusing name, SAVE program. Okay, so that's another thing. They want states to hand over their voter rolls, and I can't stress this enough. Minnesota, ICE presence in Minnesota is not even about immigration. It's not even about fraud. Minnesota is a blue state, and they're going into blue states and they are trying to demand their voter rolls, and they're going to see who is voting for the Democrats, and they're most likely going to purge the voter rolls, or they're going to start labeling more people as domestic terrorists, further taking away rights from American citizens. Just so we're clear. There's a Ken Klippenstein uh, article about um, American citizens being deemed domestic terrorists. I recommend going to read that. It's a really good one. We're going to continue with this. We're almost done. But the provisions is only intended to strong arm state officials trying to protect their voters' privacy. Dozens of states have refused to provide voter files requested by the Trump administration because of concerns about misuse of such data. And those concerns are well founded. The administration conceded in January that DOJ team members within the Social Security Administration agreed to turn over state voter rolls to an advocacy group seeking to find evidence of voter fraud and overturn election results in certain states. What did I tell you? What did I just say? I did read this earlier, but I forgot that this part was actually in here. DOJ is giving away your they're giving away your information. In other words, the Senate's bill punishes citizens of states that have been protecting their privacy. Yeah, it's let's read this little part. The SAVE Act solves nothing. All available evidence, including from the Trump administration itself, indicates that only American citizens vote, and exceptions are vanishingly rare. States that have combed through their voter rolls looking for illegally casted votes, like Louisiana and Utah, did recently have repeatedly confirmed that fact. So yeah, I mean, it's all unfounded. They're doing this not to protect election integrity, but rather they're doing this to undermine election integrity and steal elections. That's what they're trying to do. Now, Trump recently, he was talking to Dan Bongino, but he also doubled down on this idea of nationalizing the election, and nationalizing the election literally means the federal government is in control of elections instead of the states. And what would that do? Well, you could kind of guess that if the federal government, especially under Trump, was to take control of elections, they can literally throw out any votes that they don't like. I mean, or they can find the votes that they want, like Trump tried to do in Georgia. Trump tried to find 12,000 votes in Georgia so that he could win in 2020. Didn't work out because turns out those votes just weren't there. You didn't win it, right? And he literally tried to steal an election, but continued to project this idea that the Democrats were stealing the election. So now he's talking about nationalizing the election process so that Republicans can just steal every election going forward. Now there have been Republicans talking out against this, but then there's also Republicans who are backing it and saying, yeah, sure. I mean, or actually, what the president means is that he is very concerned with election integrity, and I think he's just saying that we need to have more election integrity, and we need to make sure that it's one vote per person, and that only American citizens are. It's not that. He doubled down and said, no. We need to, if we see that Republicans are in trouble, we need the people behind me to go in and solve the issue, that kind of thing. Anyways, let's hear this reporting.
In a podcast interview with his former
Why is it
FBI
doing that?
deputy.
Sorry, I hate when that happens. Why is it happening?
With his former FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, President Trump turned heads with this.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
Given that the Constitution dictates elections be run by the states, the president's comments triggered Democratic outrage.
Now, I gotta say that, for a long, long time, Republicans have always, championed the Constitution. The Constitution says this, the Constitution says that. We have like a whole um, legal body that it's called the Federalists, and they look at the Constitution and its, most uh what's the word? And its most uniform way or whatever. And then they just, they get the power with Trump, and they're just like, yeah, fuck the Constitution. We're going to take away your First Amendment. We're not going to take away your Second Amendment. We're going to violate your Fourth Amendment. We're going to do away with the 14th Amendment. Like, it's insane that, and it's insane that the people who always tote about protecting the Constitution are just literally bending over backwards to whatever Trump says, and they just go along with it. They have no spine.
I don't see this as a distraction. I see it as an actual threat. He has said out loud what he wants to do.
And polite pushback from top Republicans.
It's always been the responsibility of the states to administer elections.
I want to see elections.
Because I don't know why my thing is doing
President
this.
Trump pressed late today, insisting there are problems with elections in multiple states.
Horrible corruption on elections, and the federal government should not allow that. The federal government should get involved.
It comes amid growing alarm among Democrats following last week's FBI raid of a Fulton County, Georgia election center.
So I don't have time to get into that, but yes, they did that. They did that raid where Tulsi Gabbard was there, kind of stalking out. Sorry, I'm gonna reload it, and kind of start that over. I don't know why it's bugging out, but
Georgia election center. The FBI seizing hundreds of boxes of ballots and other documents related to the 2020 election, which the president has repeatedly and falsely claimed was stolen.
This motherfucker won, and he's still doing this
Tulsi
shit.
Gabbard observed the raid and later facilitated a call in which President Trump spoke directly to FBI agents involved in the search, two sources say.
She has no role in executing search warrants, and she does not belong on the scene of a domestic FBI search, particularly one tied to the president's personal grievances carried out under the pretense of normal law enforcement.
Garrett joins us tonight from the White House, but Garrett...
So so you heard him double down on it. He talked to Dan Bongino about it, and then he doubled down on it in the Oval Office, and it's should alarm everyone. But don't worry, because we have a hero on the case. Hakeem Jeffries, the sexual panther that he is, comes out with a tweet. Donald Trump wants to nationalize the midterm election so he can steal it. Get lost. We will never let that happen. Yes, Hakeem Jeffries, please, I need you to write a strongly worded message to Donald Trump. Throw some spicy words in there. Tell him you said no. We love it. God, he's so fucking spineless, dude. Grow a fucking pair, man. Grow a fucking pair. Do something. Be alarmist, please. Please, fight back, man. It's just, bro, I would have much preferred it if he was just like, hey, Trump, fuck you. That's what. Hey, Trump, you can suck my dick. That's what. Like, do some of that. Go into the Oval Office and say, hey, Trump, suck my dick. You're not getting what you want. Do something. Call out all the Republicans who were like, hey, we love the Constitution and we abide by the Constitution. You can tell them to get Trump's dick out of their mouths. All right? This tweet here, breaking: the Department of Homeland Security has been quietly demanding the tech companies turn over user information about critics of the Trump administration. And that's what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about that. And it should be very alarming that they're doing that. It should be very alarming that they are making databases and designating people as domestic terrorists, because with that designation they can do pretty much whatever they want at that point. If you are labeled a terrorist, you can be stripped of all your rights. And that's what they did after 9/11. They deemed people terrorists. They sent them to Guantanamo, and they never got a trial date. And that's why Democrats need to be alarmist. As a matter of fact, did I save? I might not have saved it. I don't want to search bookmarks. Let me see if I can find it, because it's so incredibly important that we understand. Actually, let me see if I can. All right. He posted this, I think Monday, so I might have to scroll back quite a bit. Oh wait, no, right here. My screen is still bugging out, and I don't understand. All right, there we go. All right, so here we go. This is Feds identify leader of Antifa. 29-year-old Chandler Patey has been regularly posting outside his local ICE facility in South Portland for months, offering up his apartment to fellow protesters to use the bathroom or wash off pepper spray, according to local news. To the Department of Homeland Security, he is the leader of Antifa in Portland, Oregon. The phrase appears in an internal report produced by DHS, the largest law enforcement agency in the country. As they see it, Patey, a young man accused of no crime who looks like a random protester plucked off the streets of Minneapolis, is a domestic terrorist. In Patey's apartment, Fox News hosts Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters saw something sinister, an Antifa safe house, as they called it in multiple segments. This kind of idiocy is hardly unprecedented by the standards of cable news, of course, but the federal government is buying into the hysteria, too. Documents leaked to me show Patey and countless other American protesters have been branded as domestic terrorists. As a result, their private information is now being collected and stored in a DHS intelligence system shown below. So here it is. And look, they even have Chandler Patey was identified through open source research as an active participant in the protests. Online platforms indicate he is the leader of Antifa in Portland, Oregon. This information has not been confirmed. Patey is seen in many videos advocating principles of Antifa. This is straight Nazi shit, by the way. And they wonder why they get called fascists and Nazis, because they're literally doing Nazi shit. Ask about Patey's inclusion and system and how this squares with spokesperson Tristan McLaughlin's response to my reporting on DHS watch list that there is no database of domestic terrorists run by DHS. The Department of Homeland Security did not respond to requests for comment. The government's elevation of an ordinary citizen like Patey to terrorist mastermind is a result of subtle bureaucratic process revealed in this and other DHS documents I've obtained. They show that since almost the beginning of the Trump administration, DHS has been desperate to pull together evidence, no matter how thin, of an epidemic of left-wing domestic terrorism. This bureaucratic imperative to find terrorists among protesters is what got Renee Good and Alex Petty killed. Customs and Border Protection, as well as other DHS sub-agencies, are hard at work producing evidence to feed the domestic terrorism frenzy through the intelligence reporting system, Next Generation, IRS-NG, a portal created to track foreign terrorists trying to sneak into America. As I've reported, there are so many databases both to feed into and extract data from that analysis needs a separate reporting system to sort out what is known and who is the potential targets, who the potential targets should be. According to DHS records, through the IRS-NG, federal agents can access at least 28 different databases the government maintains, including terrorist screening datasets. Watch list servant. Oh my God, I can't speak. Watch list service, secure flight passenger data, automated targeting systems, importer security filing and consignment manifests, automatic. Oh my God, there's so many. Automated commercial environment, arrival and departure information system, automated export system, advanced passenger information system. There's all these databases that they have to collect data from and put into. And if God, I can't read. And if that's not enough, IRS-NG has access to DMV licenses, license plate data, information from electronic devices that have been confiscated or cloned, and certain law enforcement and/or intelligence data, according to a DHS privacy impact assessment issued in the first week of the Trump administration. As Homeland Security agents and intelligence analysts gather information about the Chandler Paideys of the country, they use IRS-NG to track each individual, assessing all kinds of identifying information. Legal name, aliases, birth date, social security number, passport number, home address, and biographical information about their targets. They are swept. Oh, God. And biographical information about their targets are all swept up. Chandler Paidee was identified through open source research as an active participant in the protests, an IRS-NG entry about him says. Online platforms indicate he is the leader of Antifa in Portland, Oregon. The reports continues, adding, Paidee is seen in many videos advocating the principles of Antifa. Online platforms, or in other words, random shit they saw on X/Twitter, TikTok, or whatever. The same hysterics, it turns out, peddled by Fox News, whose host Laura Ingraham in October declared in a segment, Antifa Safe House exposed, and Portland police looked the other way. I remember this fucking segment, by the way. I remember this coming out. We've identified Antifa ringleaders and turned everything over to DHS. Portland police know where the safe house is. They're just steps away, and they still refuse to act. At Nick Sorter, the professional fucking victim, dude. The guy who got, I think he one of the guys that got ran out of Minneapolis? Portland police looked the other way because there wasn't much to see. Asked about his supposed safe house. A soft-spoken Paley let the local news see it for themselves. This is my very normal apartment and has been referred to by the right-wing social media grifters as the Antifa safe house, Paidee told the Oregonian. But I just let people use my sink and use my bathroom. This is the most bachelor pad I've seen. Like, you can kind of just see it. It looks so empty. Ridiculous as all of this might seem, Homeland Security officials tell me that many, if not most, federal agents have taken all their rhetoric about shadowy Antifa networks to heart. Intel frequently has Alex Jones level paranoia and wild leaps about Antifa, one Homeland Security official told me. So-and-so has made threats and maybe Antifa. Such and such motorcycle club has Antifa loyalty. All of this follows President Trump's designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization and his related NSPM 7 directive. Senior DHS officials have described to me the bureaucratic nightmare of having to find a legal way to implement the patently outrageous directives of an elected president whom they feel they can't just ignore. The assumption that Antifa is an organized network is evident in many other DHS, IRS, NG documents besides just the ones about Paidee. Here's another report about so-called Antifa protester named Dustin Ragsdale, shown holding a pride flag while wearing sweatpants with a Batman logo on them. But don't let the seemingly innocuous demeanor fool you. He is aggressive to counter protesters, and further research into him is being done. And the DHS document says Dustin Ragsdale is an Antifa protester who, through open source research, lives across the street from the ICE detention center. He's often seen with a megaphone and is aggressive to counter protesters. Further research is currently being conducted on this individual. Open source reporting has indicated he lives across the street from the ICE detention facility. Then there's Mossy Matriarch, the pseudonym of a 30-year-old American woman and Washington State resident who works as a photographer. But where others might see an artist and small business owner, DHS sees a conspirator who has been advocating for people to drop supplies for the Portland protesters, to quote from this report. Again, no crime is alleged. Per the report, Mossy Matriarch is a social media influencer who is on numerous social media platforms. In a recent post, she has been advocating for people to drop supplies for the Portland protesters. She lists the address to mail supplies, P.O. Box 1603, Vancouver, Washington 98661, or drop off supplies in person at the Cottonwood School. In a later post, she recorded all the supplies she had received and posted a video claiming to be driving the supplies to Portland, and was to interview one of the organizers on her podcast. See below some of her recent posts. Wow. Patty Ragsdale, Matriarch. To the record keepers, they are the enemy, and applications like the IRS and G contain a repository of confirming information. Homeland Security even insists on crediting right-wing commentators with being open source intelligence, which is just not true. They're not even journalists. They're just agitators who go and say, I don't like that people are protesting this. And then they start fights and then cry about getting in fights and then sue. And yeah, they're professional victims. But there's no one there that is, except for the manufacturing of a further fractured American landscape and a battlefield that Homeland Security believes it is operating on. With law enforcement sensitive stamped all over the documents, none of this would ever come out under the Freedom of Information Act or any formal channel. And forget about Congress, which seems to be more interested in scoring political points against administration figures like Kristi Noem than any systematic changes to the Department of Homeland Security. There is me, of course. Yeah. All right, Ken. Giving yourself a little shout out. I like it. So I just wanted to read that because it's very important to know what's going on. And you can call your Congress people, you can call your senators and urge them to fight back against ICE. Obviously, their ICE funding or DHS funding has been like approved for like the next 2 weeks. Call your Congress people, call your senators, and tell them to vote no on any further funding for DHS and ICE. And they need to openly be advocating to abolish ICE. They also need to be very loud about the Republicans' attempt to steal elections and suppress voters. They also need to sound the alarm that Trump is openly advocating to nationalize elections, and doing so just completely throws away our democracy. And and that the Trump administration is openly antagonistic to hundreds of millions of Americans and migrants alike. With that being said, guys, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, stay aware of things. If you go to a protest, I suggest that you mask up, wear some sunglasses. If ICE is there, sunglasses, masks, because I have time, because there's one last thing that I should show you. I'll bring it up here. There's one last thing I should show you. and that is in Maine. There, ICE is in Maine right now. Maine is another blue state. If I could spell correctly. For data, fixing my jewelry. Let's see if I can find the clip. Here we go. I found it. So here's the clip.
ICE observers say agents are making a point of recording them and their license plates and then using the information in ways that raise serious privacy concerns. Fox 9's Corin Hoggard talked to some people who have had agents lead them right to their own homes. As he tells us, it sounds like a federal judge also has issues with that behavior.
Whether agents are allowed to access your private data using license plate readers or facial recognition was not part of the judge's ruling, but she did say observers established a pattern of ICE agents attempting to chill their First Amendment rights. When Judy and Noah Levy started following ICE agents driving away from a St. Paul shopping center last week, the agents stopped them almost immediately. Video shows an agent apparently recording their license plate and Noah Levy's face. Seconds later, an agent tapped on Judy's window.
He said, "How can I help you, Judith? Are you having a good day, Judith?" And we knew right away he got that from our plates.
Yeah, he was menacing us.
The Levys didn't back down. They kept following, but soon found themselves in a familiar neighborhood.
ICE is at my house.
Their experience mirrors that of dozens of observers, including Ryan Eklund, who noticed an agent recording his information as he followed in Woodbury this week.
They started to drive towards my neighborhood and must have run my plate because they drove into my neighborhood and into my cul-de-sac where I live. There's no circumstance where they would have rolled through there without knowing that.
So there's a lot of warrantless data collection.
This isn't even the clip I was thinking about. This is so much worse.
Protesters of just individuals who were seemingly in the area of an ICE detention or ICE action.
ACLU attorney John Beeler says ICE agents are allowed to photograph license plates or people out in public, but they haven't explained what they're doing with the photos. Minnesota law restricts how law enforcement can use that type of data, usually allowing it only in active criminal investigations, not for identification of peaceful observers. If the goal is to frighten people out of legally recording them, though, it's working in at least some cases.
I don't know that I'll be continuing to follow ICE.
I'm not going to follow them. I'm scared.
I'll still do it, but that's an important thing. You can still participate within your level of comfort.
So that's not even the clip that I was looking for. There's one where he openly tells the woman why he's doing it. Oh, of course it opens Facebook. I think this is the one.
Yeah. Look at them. Look at them. The ICE is here, guys. Be careful. Be careful. They're over here.
It's not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist.
So that right there, guys, is some of the most chilling I don't even know. It's absolutely chilling. This is where we are right now. So just so you know why people are calling this the Gestapo, why they're calling them Nazis, why they're calling this administration Nazis and fascists, is this because they're doing the exact same thing that Nazis did, deeming people enemies of the state so that they can then Go and get rid of any political dissent, and they will put you in concentration camps. That's what they've been doing. These detention centers are not detention centers. They are concentration camps, and the conditions are abysmal inside of these places. And just again, remember, they label you a domestic terrorist, and they can take away all of your rights. So, again, please stay aware, stay safe, know your rights, and fight like hell for them. All right? All right, guys. Peace.